Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another set of Genshin Impact reactions. Today we have two more from Harshit in the comments of the last video, and I'm not even gonna try to pronounce what these are. But apparently they're the Pillar of Embla vocal OSTs according to Harshit. So like that gives me something that I can at least title them because, good lord, I'm not gonna try. But I suppose with all that out of the way, I'm gonna hear these, and without further ado, let's go! Vocals indeed. Kind of going for a similar thing that the last song did. This one feels a little bit more like Nod Cry to me though. A lot closer to that sound. Yeah, definitely has more of that like Celtic vibe to it. That is something I definitely associate with Nod Cry's music. I love this like ethereal pad of strings. Oh, I love it when they do those little vocal runs. Man. Beautiful song. Not too terribly much going on when it comes down to the way that it's being written. Like again, it's kind of a pad of strings. So there's movement in there, but it's just a very blanket sort of sound they're going for. So what do I mean by a blanket of sound? Like I mentioned, the whole pad situation, that's basically just a bunch of notes being played at the same time to create this sort of noise bed that everything else is playing on. And it does follow music theory rules. It's just in a much more condensed version than you would usually get. There is movement in these chords, but it's not nearly as actively separated in the ear. It's all of this happening all at once, and a lot of this space being filled up in multiple octaves while also having some slight variance between those chords. So for this one, we're getting stuff like the E minor and the A minor, but we also get an A, which is kind of the reason some of this feels a little crunchy. We also have a D in there, I believe, and again, there's the whole crunch in there. This being an E minor allows for a little bit of flex with that because there is a little bit of those flexes on the notes. You have some black keys, some white keys. You're allowed to crunch things together a little bit more in there, especially in the vocal lines. The general melody of the song has a lot of that going on. So you're getting this movement of just these chords kind of being the bulk of what this song is, but most of the time you're hearing these in like really clumped sort of variants, like that. You're just getting these really tight but also crunchy general chords, and that's not just what's happening alone. There's, like I said, multiple octaves being utilized here, and it's all just kind of there constantly. So you don't get to hear those movements like when it goes from an A minor to an A. It's a very minor difference in there, and it's just not something that your ear will tune into when everything else is also happening. You know, there's a bunch of things clashing in here, so when they make those sorts of little changes in here between like that and the D, there's just not a lot of hint to when that's happening. It just sounds like noise, and that is entirely by design. Having all of these frequencies so close to each other, it becomes almost impossible to decipher exactly what's going on. Even I had to listen through this and try to figure out. I was here for like a solid 10 to 15 minutes, just hitting chords and going, which ones make sense in this harmonic sense? Because things like C are kind of there, but not really, because like that would be in the A minor and also a little bit of the E minor, but it's not the same as having that A in there. And like, why is that there? So I kind of came to that conclusion that it's a little bit of A minor, a little bit of E minor, because these share that first note of E, and it's like, okay, you get that E there, you get that E in the A minor triad as well. So it's just enough, as well as borrowing these two black keys in here, and then those are utilized as well, again, for that melody, especially near the end where she does like that vocal run. She runs down everything from basically the E minor scale all the way down it. So it ends up with that whole... And we just kind of get that, you know? It's this beautiful run, but that clues me into the inclusion of a D, because that's there, that D, and also that A is there. So it's like, we have these notes, we need to utilize them, but it's also utilizing things like the E. So I know that that's a factor as well. So it's like, how do I apply all of this? E and A. You roll with that, that's most of the song, and all this fitting in E minor just totally makes sense in that way. So music theory there. This sounds gorgeous. And like I did mention, this sounds a lot more Nod Cry to me than the other one, which was clearly more of like the Genshin main theme sound. I know that there was a little bit of that in the Nod Cry theme as well, and I think that's entirely on purpose, but it's not quite the same thing. And the fact that there is that distinction is very important to me, just being able to analyze these, because that means specifically that location from the last video is a little bit different than the one we're dealing with now. Maybe not entirely, and obviously they are related in some major ways, but as far as the sound goes, they have their own identity, and the melody is different between the Nod Cry theme, even if it is kind of referencing the main theme. It's not quite the same. So all of this matters. All of this creates a different identity of what we're dealing with here, and why this matters, and why this sound is more blanket and has more of that like tense, dense sort of sound to it. There's a little bit more going on in the bed of this song. There's just not a lot of clarity. We have that in a lot of Nod Cry stuff that has been defined and refined over the years in Nod Cry. We have a distinct sound for that, but this is somewhere in between. So like I mentioned this in a comment on the last video as well, that I could do like a dissertation on the musical identities of this game, because there are so many potential connections going on just in the sound. It would be awesome. I just don't have the time to write that sort of shit, but I do have the time to yap about it. And now I need to hear this other song and see how similar that one is. It might be something completely different. Might be a little bit more Nod Cry. It might be a little bit more standard Genshin. I'm not sure. Let's find out. Okay. Already we have a more distinct melody. Still similar thematically to the other one. Oh, sorry. I love this flute. Ooh. Yeah, a lot more distinction on the instruments in general. It's still so distinct though. It feels a little bit more Nod Cry, just because of that, like, separation, but not quite either. God, they did such a good job at separating these. Ooh, does that hit? Oh, I knew it was short. I thought we were going to get something else. It felt like it was swelling into something. Maybe it was. Maybe there's like a follow-up theme to this one. Oh, that was going somewhere. It's kind of a bummer I don't get to hear where that was going, but that felt like it was going to lead into something else. So this one is obviously a different composer and has a different sound to it, but I also love the distinction here because it adds to that whole expectation of this part of the music in Genshin to me. It sounds different from the other one because it's not a pad. It's not creating this bass line of a bunch of noise with a very subtle sort of melody on the top. It is a lot more separated, has a lot more going on in the movement, and it's all just kind of a more standard approach to music, really. I believe this one's an A-flat major. I was messing around with it, of course, and I was kind of figuring out exactly what was happening here, and I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here. So that's A-flat major. I think we also have a B-flat minor, which is an interesting chord in and of itself, but that's beside the point. And we have D flat and E flat. So it's kind of fun. This progression, if you just play it up and kind of swing it a little bit, it almost sounds like an 80s rock ballad of sorts. Like, I'm sure you've probably heard a song with that sort of a vibe in there. It's very straightforward, but also it just feels kind of good, but that's not exactly what's happening here either. This seems to move between like the B flat minor and then like go up to the D or the E here, somewhere in there, and then go back down to the A most times. It's not quite so linear, but having a different pattern of those chords makes it a different emotional pressure. So we're getting something like this, moving it down and going up from there. So it kind of brings you with it down a little bit and creates this emotional burden on the song that's then lifted and resolved, but not nearly as straightforward as just moving straight up the line. I think there's also an F minor in here, which adds a lot more of that emotion to it. It feels probably a G minor in there, maybe even somewhere in there. It's one of those two, maybe both. So having those sorts of chords in there makes it feel obviously more emotional, a little bit more sad, because you can hang on those emotionally and let the song kind of take you away to a different experience that's not this bright uplifting sort of progression. That again is very masterfully handled here because it's not making you feel this brightness. It's more of like that sensation I talk about a lot of the time of like hope and like there's a better tomorrow. It's a different sensation than just like, hey, let's go. And they have chords like that, and C minor would probably be in there as well, that add to this, that allow you to feel something a little bit different than just the happy-go-lucky bass line of what could be. And a lot of that is in the arrangement as well, having the instruments do what they do, especially the strings being in here the way they are. It just separates things out. The vocal performance as well makes it feel a little bit more somber. In just a general sense, this could be a happy-go-lucky, upbeat pop song, but the fact that it's not, and the fact that they are carefully weaving between those ideas and not allowing you to feel that way, rather than just feeling strangely at ease with the reality of what you're hearing. It just feels more like you're at peace rather than you are looking towards something or experiencing something that is positive so much as it is experiencing what was and working off of that, knowing that there could be more out there. You just don't know yet. You don't know why this is. This is more the song I would expect for something that is starting to make your gears turn in your brain, where the first one is like when you first stumble upon something, there's a lot of that bed noise. You're not sure what those chords are supposed to be, where they're going yet, why they're going, you know, any of that, all these questions. And then for this one, it feels like an evolution of that, where now you can separate things. Ideas are starting to make sense. There's suddenly shape to this noise that we were getting before. And it does utilize some of the same notes, of course. It's fucking music. It of course will. So there's some of that to tie it together. I don't know if these songs are directly linked in any way, shape, or form, or if they're completely separate chunks of the game, but thematically and stylistically, they do vibe with each other, just in a lot more of a, this makes more sense than the first one did, because this one has a clear direction, a clear motive, and the other one didn't have nearly as much of that, and that's why it stands out in that way. It's more mysterious. It's more of those questions, and this one gives you a few of those answers, maybe not all of them, but enough that you can at least start expecting something out of the location that you're in now. You're finally starting to put those pieces together. The whole puzzle is still missing some pieces somewhere, and you have to figure out where those are and where to place them, but it's a lot better than the random scattered mess mess that was on the floor when you first got there. But I think that's about all I gotta say on these ones. These are beautiful. Like, this is probably the most, like, brain activity I've gotten from Genshin music recently, last week and this week. I love this direction where things are going. Things are starting to connect to other things I've heard before, and they're making sense. And, like, just the lore is starting to talk to me. It's like jumping out of the screen at my face. And that's awesome. That, again, yeah, I've talked about this a billion times. Genshin's music has always been great at keeping this sense of identity in the world and making those distinct sounds. And the fact that I can tell that this feels like Nod Cry, but not quite Nod Cry, but also that other one was definitely utilizing the original Genshin theme. They're trying to bring that back in. And now I'm trying to figure out, using this sound, why that is. Just like I was trying to connect these two songs, how the first one felt a little bit more mysterious and less refined, and this one had a lot more of that. So it's just really fucking cool. I love it when games can do this, when everything starts falling into place and making sense, even just in the music. That's just a testament to how brilliant these composers are and the music directors are for this game. They just know what they're going for, and they have a clear identity that they're trying to achieve and a direction to take that. And I love that because it makes it all the more interesting for me. But I need to stop yapping. Thank you all so very much for watching. If you have another song you want me to get to, by all means, drop them in the comments below, and I will do my best as always to get to those. Or if you don't want to do any of that, maybe just want to follow me and support me for more stuff coming in the future, you know how to do all that. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye!